introduce some folks. My name's Austin Ariel. I'm the Director of Children's Ministry at Park Cities Presbyterian Church. I'm joined by Carla Dillard, who is our Nursery and Childcare Ministry Leader, Jeannie Cox, who is our Preschool Ministry Leader, Matt Sadem, who is our Elementary Ministry Leader, and then Kim Heflin, who is the Children's Ministry Coordinator. They've been integral to getting this thing going and helping, and you'll hear from them tonight. But for our schedule, so for the next 15, maybe 20 minutes, you'll hear from me, a presentation on kind of where the future of children's ministry is going. And then after that, we'll have 10 to 15 minutes of Q&A. When I end the presentation, I'll kind of give you some ground rules for Q&A. But in the meantime, if you hear something that I say during the presentation, feel free to type a question or make a note of it, type a question into the chat feature on Zoom, or make a note of it, and then we can come back to it in the Q&A. So, but please wait till the end to ask questions. So without further ado, I'm actually going to pray for us and then jump into the presentation. So if you would bow your heads and close your eyes with me. Father, we thank you for this incredible ministry and the responsibility you have given us. What a privilege it is to care and love for children and their families. Lord, we pray for our time. Give me clarity of thought, Lord. Help me to communicate well what you have laid on our team's heart, elders, parents, volunteers' hearts, Lord, as we go forward into this new era of children's ministry at PCPC. Pray for our time. It's in Christ's name we pray. Amen. All right, so before I begin, we have actually 3 poll questions, and we would love your participation in them. Very harmless questions, but the feedback will be very helpful for us as a ministry. So I'm going to ask Matt if he can go ahead and put the first poll question out for us. And while he does that, let me go ahead and begin. So, you know, the Lord has done a very mighty thing and great things the last 5 years. I've only been at PCPC for 5 years, but the testimony and the stories that we have been able to hear for many years about what the children's ministry has meant to children and families we cannot contain all the stories, it feels like. So, but for the last 5 years, we've seen some incredible things happen. We've added 2 new full-time staff positions with Jeannie and Matt. We've had wonderful staff rejoin us with Heather Holmes. We've had Carla Dillard come along, a new staff person in light of the tragedy with Gail, who has filled in beautifully and has just taken the reins of that ministry and moved it forward. And then, of course, we have Darian and Heather Squibb and Barrett Ball, who lead in their different areas with VBS and ZestQuest. So the Lord has given us a great team, staff team, and that's a blessing. That's a blessing from you as a congregation to this church and to the children's ministry. We've added numerous successful family events the last 5 years. You think about our family Advent service, you think about the Easter family worship services, Pumpkin Gospel, and even some of our kind of our foundational ones like VBS. We've had great participation. Families have been connecting in community, and kids are having a thrill and a ball at these events. And so we've even, in the last 5 years, we've implemented new programs and we've empowered volunteer teams to serve. Just this 2 years ago, Bible Explorers had a clean slate of volunteers where lay people stepped up and began serving immediately. I think about our 2-year-old classrooms who, for the longest time, we struggled with knowing how to disciple and how to care for kids there. And under leadership with the nursery ministry, they were able to really jumpstart that 2-year-old program. And now it's an incredible piece to the children's ministry program. And so right now, though, we sit on the threshold of a new beginning, a new era, as I prayed, and we get a new building. I know we're not meeting at PCPC, but perhaps you see videos online or you're able to drive by, but a new building is near completion. And from what I was told, near the beginning of August, it would be done. Now, the new building is done, but please let me say this. There is no timeline for re-entry into our children's ministry. I cannot sit here tonight and tell you that this is the date or there is a date where we will go back into the new building as far as kids are concerned. So I don't have that information for you tonight, but that new building will be complete. And so in this season, we want to take some time to really think about what does ministry look like in a brand new building. Brand new rooms, meeting spaces, technology, welcome places, all the things that you could imagine a new building and inhabiting, but what does the ministry look like in the rooms with the kids and the families? And so that's really what this talk is about tonight, and what I want to share with you. So I have 3 recommendations. And those recommendations have various groups giving input into them. Before COVID began, we were in the process of meeting with consultants called ministry architects. Now, the consultants weren't brought in because of fear or because our ministry was failing in any regard, really. The consultants were brought in for a season, or to prepare us for this new season in the building. And so with the children's ministry and the youth ministry, the ministry architects, the name of the consultants, are looking at doing deep dives into our ministry to kind of help us figure out some of the things that have never worked, and also to figure out what we can do and what we can improve on. So one of the ways I want to really capture our evening with these recommendations is a very image that comes to my mind, and it's shipbuilding. So in shipbuilding, ships are never built out in the throes of the sea. They're never put out to sea to be built, right? They're built in peace and calm in a dry dock. So if you see the picture there, there's a dry dock, and I don't know if any of you have ever been to a dry dock or seen it, but ships are carefully put together, pieced together, not only material-wise, but you think about all the systems and the ways in which it takes to make a ship operate. And recruitment and hiring and employing people to run the ship and to work in the ship. Well, I look at our season right now, and our team looks at the season right now as a dry dock, as a way in which we have this time to prepare and to re-enter into a new building. But what are the structures and what are the things in place, and who are the people that are going to help this ship be successful when it's commissioned out to sea to complete whatever objectives or missions it has? And so that's the way I kind of want to frame our time here and frame the course of our conversation. We are in dry dock as a ministry, and we really want to take this time to be intentional in preparing for that ministry once we inhabit that new building. So again, the consultants are helping us do the deep dive. They're a lay leaders part of the consultation group. We have our staff that's given input. We have our children's ministry moderators, Brian Keys, Tim Wilson, and Flora Newhoff, who are also involved in giving input, and various other lay leaders who are all feeding into these 3 recommendations that I'm going to present to you tonight. So these are not things that I whipped up. These are not things that come from our staff, but they're pockets of people that have definitely fed into these recommendations. Now, when I say them, you're going to think these are not new recommendations. I've been asking for this stuff for years. Some of you may say, hey, we already do what you're recommending. And one of these recommendations might be completely new to you. The point isn't none of those things. It's that we want to see a unified and cohesive ministry that implements all 3 recommendations, so that once we re-enter this new building, the season of children's ministry, when we get out to sea, there is no question about what our objectives are or what our mission is. So before I jump into the recommendations, we have another poll question. If I can get you guys to participate in that second poll question, Matt, if you don't mind popping that up on the screen for us. And again, you can just choose one answer, and that's all it is. And that will help us out tremendously as we continue to move forward through this quarantine season and this weird time and unusual time when we're not meeting together. So again, the recommendations come from various groups and people. I will preface all of this. This will be a huge culture shift for our children's ministry. It will be a culture shift for our volunteer bases. I would even go far as to say it'll be a culture shift for our church. So the first recommendation is to broaden the culture of care. And so what do we mean by that? Well, while some of you have probably felt cared for and loved and encouraged and pursued and known in the children's ministry, whether by other staff or by pockets of other volunteers, that may have not been the case for every volunteer in our children's ministry. And so one of the recommendations that comes from all these groups is that we need to broaden a culture of care, so that every volunteer that serves downstairs, whether you're in the classroom, whether you're running our hospitality desk, which will, those are what we have typically called red desk. Whether you're running the AV booth, all of this, you are pursued, you are known, you are cared for, and you are loved. There is intentionality there as you serve in the children's ministry. Now, that responsibility, that privilege can't fall to a few people. We need to mobilize teams of people to pursue other folks and other volunteers. And so with the recommendation comes a new volunteer position on Sunday mornings called a care coordinator. Now, care coordinators will be across the board. Every ministry will have them. Every couple of classrooms will have a care coordinator that will really be a person who has a deep, abiding sense of loving Jesus and really relationally and connecting with people in a very ministerial, sort of pastoral way. They will, and I say pastoral in a sense, that's where their heart is. They are not ordained. So these are volunteers. They will, their only objective is to love people and to know them, love the volunteers and to really get to know them and care for them, so that that responsibility is spread out amongst a team of people. And so not only with a care coordinator, again, across all the ministries, both hours, so many coordinators per different rooms. And you'll hear more about that from the breakout rooms. There will be other positions that are created as well to kind of offset some of that responsibility. We have a hospitality team. You've known that as the red desk. Those responsibilities have expanded in a new building. We want to be a welcoming and inviting church, not only for our new families and visitors that are coming into the building, but we definitely want to take care of those who are serving in the classroom. So we have a care coordinator. And then again, like I said, the ministry leaders will give you more of an idea of responsibilities within what's going on in the actual classroom when you do your breakout groups. So we want to broaden a care of culture, and that's the first recommendation that comes from the consultants as well as other lay leaders and our staff. The second recommendation is to facilitate community, a place to belong. For some, serving in the children's ministry can come at a cost to having friendships and community at PCPC. We have 2 hours on a Sunday morning, and theoretically you would hear there's 3 things you probably need to do. You need to go to worship, and that's a non-negotiable. We want to encourage our volunteers and our families to go to worship. That leaves you a second hour to either go to Sunday school or a community group or find some sort of connection at PCPC or to go serve. And really what we would love to do is to meld or kind of bring those two aspects together, to find community and to serve at the same time. You've probably heard it from our ministry leaders before. You've heard it from other leaders. We really want you to serve with the people you love. So that the enthusiasm, the joy, the happiness that you have when you get in the classroom and you see that person that you've known maybe for a couple of months or a lifetime, that's contagious to our kids. They feed off that energy, and other volunteers do too. And that is something you cannot put a price on. So what we want to do is begin to facilitate community, not just on Sunday mornings, but serving with your friends and people in the similar life stage or other folks you might want to get to know. But outside of Sunday mornings, again, going back to our care coordinators and our staff, we're going to facilitate community through programs and ideas and events that will give life to you. That will be of no obligation outside Sunday morning, that if you want to opt in, we would love to see you there. But if your schedule doesn't permit, that's totally okay. But we want to make sure that every volunteer is not only known and loved and cared for as far as a care, but that community, they're finding a place to belong, that they're not isolated and alone, and they feel that serving downstairs. So again, first recommendation is to broaden a culture of care. The second recommendation is to facilitate community. This last recommendation is one that really builds, the other two are built on. And it's a recommendation to ask for greater commitment. Some of you have served downstairs since the beginning of the church every Sunday, and you haven't stopped yet. And we are truly grateful as a ministry and as a church. And I think parents would line down the streets if they could to say thank you. Some of you have just now recently joined our children's ministry team to serve on Sunday mornings. And so you're kind of new to knowing what it's like to serve on a Sunday morning. But we want to offer a greater sense of consistency for our kids. You know, COVID has been a very disruptive thing for my home and for me, and I'm sure for many of you. And our children aren't immune to hearing and feeling that disruption. And really, it's just inconsistency. But what we could do is say, well, we know what it's like to offer the inconsistent. Let's be consistent and give our children more from our teams and from our volunteers and from our church. And so the last recommendation is to ask for a greater commitment. Well, what does that mean? We would ask at a base level, again, after prayerful consideration. We want you to really pray about, is this something that you want to commit to do it twice a month, again, with other people in the room, taking care of children and ministering to them and discipling them. Now, you may say, well, I don't have that kind of time, or I have other church responsibilities or other extra responsibilities, maybe outside the church walls. And we want to encourage that. We want to really empower you to go and pursue those things if that's really where the Lord is leading you. But that doesn't mean you can't serve. So if you're somebody here sitting here and contemplating, can I do twice a month? You're thinking, my schedule, I don't know, I'm going to be out of town here and there. Here's the offer on the table from our ministry team and from our ministry at large. If you serve twice a month or any amount above that, our staff will find your substitute for you. You never have to find a substitute. Those of you who can't commit more than twice a month, you're saying, hey, once a month is all I can give. We would love for you to be a part of our substitute list and roster. You will be tapped on and really brought in to say, hey, I can't serve every more than twice a month, but I am willing to be available whenever you need me, to come into any room in the ministry, to love children and to be a person that can care for them. So again, we're asking for a prayerfully to consider volunteering twice a month as you serve in either the nursery, the preschool ministry, or the elementary ministry at either hour. And if you can serve at twice a month, we will find your substitutes, whether you're sick, you have to go to visit your kids in college, or you're going on vacation. The reasons do not matter. We will find your substitute for you. So we want to remove that obstacle and that roadblock away from you committing to making a greater commitment to the children's ministry. You know, one of the things that I've heard since I've been at children's ministry is, and especially in our community in our day and age, and I experience this as a parent, is we want the best for our kids. I want the best for my two girls, and I will do things to make sure that they have the best teachers or the best soccer coach. And those are the consistent faces that we always come back to. I want my kid to always have the same soccer coach. And the impact on that is you can't measure it, right? Many of you might sit here and say, I remember a certain teacher or coach or a piano teacher or a youth leader who was always there, who was always that consistent face. That's the same thing we're wanting for our children, is a consistent face that they will build a relationship with. Yes, even in the nursery with infants, we want that consistent face for that brand new mom and dad who drops off that baby for the very first time, and they'll get to know you and you'll get to know them. We want that consistent presence and relationship that will build into the lives of children. The overarching goal, why are these 3 recommendations coming out? Because we believe, one, that as a volunteer, you should be cared for, that you should be shepherded and loved and known. But the other thing is that we, on the other side of that, is we want to make the greatest impact on the children. The children that we have now is not the next generation. They're the generation of now. Whatever happens now is going to impact it later. So we have to start now. So we're really wanting and asking your help in making a greater commitment. So before I go into the final leg of my sort of presentation here, we have one more poll question. And if you don't mind participating in that, that'll give, again, us a good sense of where things are going in our children's ministry. So if you don't mind answering that. So to kind of wrap this up, we're in this dry dock season. We're waiting, earnest expectation, and we don't know what the future holds. We don't know when quarantine will end. We don't know when COVID will go away, or there will be a vaccine, or it just will not exist anymore. We don't have a timeline for that. I don't have a timeline for when we will re-enter the building. So while we're in this dry dock season, as the building is being complete, as systems and programs and events are being thought through, we really want to make sure that we take as much time to think through, how can we care for you as volunteers? And then what can we do to empower you as we get into the new building, as we're commissioned into this new season to really excel at our objectives and missions, and really just to disciple and love families well. And so I hope you find these recommendations encouraging. Again, this doesn't come just from staff. This doesn't just come from me. This comes from lots of people. And you might have said some of these recommendations for years. And so we want you to prayerfully consider these recommendations. We're not looking for a commitment right now. Later this week, or maybe next week, you'll get an email from our children's ministry with a follow-up and kind of trying to begin the process of seeing if you want to commit. So take time to pray, take time to think about this. I'm going to move us into our Q&A session. And so the staff that I have here will help me through that. I will try to do my best to answer your questions. If you have a question, what we would love for you to do is there is a little raise hand feature down somewhere on the Zoom. If you're on an iPad, it's up at the top. If you're maybe on your iPhone, it's at the bottom. So what you can do is kind of raise your hand and we'll acknowledge that. You'll unmute, ask your question, and then if you don't mind muting again so that I can answer. And so you see our lovely picture here of a commission ship. Whenever we're able to fully form our teams, our structures are in place, the programs are ready to go. When we're able to get in that new building and all the excitement is bursting out of it, man, we're commissioned. We're ready to go. We know what we're doing, and we know who we're doing it with and who we're doing it for. So I really hope you take these, again, find these recommendations encouraging and helpful. And we want to just see a brand. I honestly cannot wait to get together and be in this new building with you all. So let's move into Q&A, and we'll go from there. Do we have any questions?
Also, as a quick aside, if you would like to, if you just would rather unmute yourself and you have the ability to do that, you can, if you want to just take advantage of the silence, feel free to just unmute and you can ask your question, and we'd be happy to help you that way as well.
It looks like someone asked, please explain the express need behind the care coordinators. That's a good question. Care coordinators were a recommendation where it felt, and it seems, and it can seem like maybe staff are responsible for trying to run a Sunday morning and all the programs and trying to keep up with all the volunteers. And so in an effort not to bottleneck the care feature in our children's ministry, we wanted to expand that team and especially involve lay people who are very gifted at the relational components and want to invest in the leaders in the room and the adults in the room. And so the care coordinator was kind of that was kind of the need behind it, to allow other people to come alongside and minister to other folks. The next question is, so do you want twice a month in the nursery? Yes, we are prayerfully asking you to consider volunteering twice a month. Again, I use that language very specifically, prayerfully consider it. We know that may not be for everyone. Again, if you do decide to commit to serve in the children's ministry, and let's say you're sick or you want to go on a vacation or there's a wedding or you just need to go out of town, the staff will find your subs. All you have to do is just let a staff person know, hey, I'm out of town for the Texas OU. Well, you can't go out of town for Texas OU weekend, but you get what I'm saying. We'll cover for you. And so we'll find your subs for you. Let's see. There's a question here. Will there be new, more stringent health guidelines? Thank you, Nancy, for that. So as far as right now, again, there hasn't been a real, as far as I know, and where I kind of am at PCPC, I haven't heard any sort of questions or conversations have really begun about re-entry into the new building. But whenever we do get to that point, I would be very adamant that we will have some of the recommendations, again, from the CDC, from the county, and from what we know as we gather more information as far as COVID is concerned. So I would venture to say, yes, we'll have more stringent guidelines and sort of ways in which we clean and sanitize well, we're not downstairs anymore. We're upstairs and downstairs. So the children's ministry spaces will be thoroughly sanitized and cleaned. Yeah. Let's see. Great question. What about Fifth Sunday? I'll be quite honest with you. We are still trying to mull that over and figure that out. So I don't want to commit any answer to fifth Sunday right now as far as serving in the children's ministry. Looks like somebody did that. David Quine, thank you for that. Will there be the same number of adults per room? Ideally, yes, 2 at minimum. We're looking to add 2, at least 2 more. So what, in theory, we would love to have 4 adults in every room. One, you may think that's overkill. It possibly could be. That gives us some latitude if somebody's sick, that we have extra, a couple there. But we're planning for growth in our new building. We're planning to bust out the seams. I mean, we build a new building for growth. And so ideally, as our numbers grow, children grow, so will our volunteer numbers. And so we would love to at least put two people have to be in the room, 2 adults have to be in the room. We would love to add another couple or another set of volunteers in there. They don't have to be together, so that there is some sense of community. There's some sense of shared responsibility for the discipleship of kids. There's a reliance and there's friendship that's built. Tim Wilson shares with me often when I meet with him about the friendships that he formed with couples like the Batemans or the McBrides. And so I think things like that are very critical. As you guys are serving downstairs, we want to make sure that you're cared for, again, and loved and known, but that you're finding friendship and community while you're doing it. It's a great, great question. Any other questions? And as Matt said, if you just want to unmute and ask, that's great. All right. Here we go. No, so the care couple does not take the place of the room leaders or the teachers in the room. The care couple is an additional position. So we will still have what we would normally call the red desk. That terminology is going to go away. They'll be called the hospitality team. So we'll still have those folks. Care coordinators are more about helping and caring and loving for the room leaders and the volunteers in the room. So we will still have room leaders. We'll still have, we would call them assistant room leaders. You'll hear more about those jobs and responsibilities in your breakout rooms. But we will, the care couples are a part more of outside the hallway than inside the classroom, if that maybe helps delineate where their obligations and responsibilities lie.
Austin, it's Diane Addison.
Yeah,
I don't know whether mine got through. In view of the fact that you're trying to get more volunteers, I just want to make a recommendation, and that is that you consider loosening up the entry requirements for teachers. Just my personal background, before being allowed to teach 2-year-olds, I had to read the entire Westminster Confession of Faith. I really don't think I'm going to get into the finer points of predestination with the 2-year-olds. And second of all, you know, a couple of years ago, we had to go through a whole long doctrinal statement. We were told it was like 30 minutes to complete. It took me an hour and a half, and I was so ticked off at the end of it. I nearly didn't want to volunteer at all. So just, you know, you can do with that as you will, but that's just my 2 cents.
Definitely appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you for the feedback, and we'll make a note of that and see where that kind of came up. And yeah. Let's see, Karen, will all volunteers in rooms be prepared to teach lessons, or will you have teachers with helpers? Again, great question. Our goal is to have the lessons dispersed to all people serving in the room. So Eve, if you have, what we would want is a main teacher, somebody that is responsible for teaching. But as that teacher is teaching, the people that maybe aren't necessarily teaching are still actively prepared and a part of the lesson in other responsibilities and ways in the room. So you could have a main teacher. Then you may have somebody that's strictly in charge of snacks and taking attendance. And then you might have somebody in the room that's strictly in charge of craft dispersion. And maybe you have another female volunteer that all they're going to do that day is change diapers if you're in the nursery. And so that may not sound like a luxury, but again, you kind of see where I am on that. So for Karen, for your question, all volunteers, if there is a lesson in the room, all volunteers going forward will get the curriculum, not just the main teacher, so that everyone's aware of what's being taught in the room. Do the care couples serve all rooms? No. So the way that the care couples, at least the recommendation is that a care couple would kind of take care of a few rooms at a time. So the easiest thing to do would be to start a nursery. There would be a care couple responsible for just the infant volunteers and the crawler volunteers at 9:30 on the first and third Sundays of a month. They're going to meet you. They're going to help you. They're going to get to know those volunteers, and that will be along with staff, the people who will minister and take care of and get to know those folks. Is the care couple one couple for each area, or is it like the red desk that they will share with another couple like the red desk? So care couples and hospitality teams are different obligations and responsibilities. There will be some overlap. We really, as we, one of the themes with this, the Extend campaign was new doors. And so the children's ministry area sits with lots of new doors to actively welcome people in. Hospitality will be more taking care of families and families, visitors, people who need help kind of on the front end. We'll call it front of the house. Care couples will be back of the house. They'll really help take care of the volunteers in the rooms and getting their needs taken care of and relationally meeting with them. So so that's kind of the delineation there, Catherine. I hope that maybe helps. So the care couples, one couple, they don't have to be married. It could be a female and a male that their spouses have other responsibilities or other passions, but they really want to invest in the lives of the people downstairs. So so the care couples do not have to be married. It makes it ideal, but yeah.
Hey, Austin, just to clarify, I guess I'm trying to figure out the difference. I mean, so the red desk truly will only check in new people and make sure there's enough volunteers in each room, but the relational piece, it'll be there, but primarily will move toward the care team.
Yes. So the one thing to think of is I think this is Catherine Holmes. I can't see you, but I recognize your voice, and it's so great to hear your voice.
It's me. You're right.
The point is, yes, let's say you and Aaron are at the nursery welcome desk. You're still checking in new families, and you're assisting with that. But let's say you pop around and you know a lot of these families that are room leaders, and you want to get to chat with them. That does not mean that you can't go talk to them and love on them. It's just your primary responsibility is about the families coming in the door. And then, as that may happen, you'll be able to, kind of make your rounds and talk to all the room leaders and again, get to touch base with them. So what we have tried to do with the care coordinator is really amp up the care of the volunteers in the room. So Catherine and Aaron, while you might get to talk to a set of volunteers in a room, that will be a relationship built, but that's not the only relationship that they'll have. They'll have other people that are intentionally pursuing those people as well in the room to make sure that they're cared for and loved. So we're kind of just putting layers upon layers of care on all the volunteer teams. And so hospitality could be part of that, but that would not be your primary responsibility. The other thing for folks that work on the hospitality teams, think about our new building. The nursery will kind of sit in the current nursery area, but we'll have a preschool and elementary area almost in a different building. I mean, it will be in a different building. So kind of trekking back and forth and making sure we get new families, and even some families that are for the first time will visit, to make sure they're getting in the right spots. It'll require a lot of bandwidth and a lot of teamwork. So we are anticipating that as well with the care couples and the hospitality teams. Yes, Nancy, care couples are volunteers. All of this is volunteer based. Absolutely. David, that's a great question. If you don't mind, the question was, would this be an option, be there every Sunday for the fall, spring, summer, but not all year? Great question. If I can take that and maybe discuss with some of these people that have made the recommendations and see kind of what the consensus is there, but that is a great question.
Austin.
Yes.
Are we getting new curriculum?
Is this Linda Weaver?
No, it's
Nope.
Sandy Woods.
Sorry, Sandy. No new curriculum. We're keeping the same curriculum as far as I know. So the nursery will still keep its same for the same curriculum it's had for years. So yeah.
Okay. Well, you made a statement and made Stephen, I think you were getting new curriculum. So I was just curious.
No new curriculum. Any other questions out there? These are great questions, by the way. Thank you all for asking them. All right, so here's what we're going to do. If you do have more questions, we would love for you to continue to ask those. Please feel free to ask those in the breakout rooms, or you can just email us at childrensministry@pcpc.org, and somebody will get an answer to you. So incredibly grateful for you joining us tonight. Thank you for bearing with me, bearing with the technology and all the digital